In the cold, air-conditioned conference hall of the International Monetary Fund, leaders from across the globe sat under bright white lights. Charts and graphs flashed on giant screens. Speeches filled with polite language floated across the room. It was supposed to be just another meeting. But on that day, a 34-year-old leader from Burkina Faso would stand, speak 3 words, and bring the room to complete silence. 3 words, that would echo across Africa. This is the Untold story of the moment Ibrahim Traoré shut down the IMF. The build-up day began like any other high-level economic conference. Representatives from powerful nations and global financial institutions were gathered to discuss support for African economies. On paper, it looked like an opportunity: loans, aid packages, and development plans. But for many African leaders, these meetings felt less like help and more like control. The terms were always the same: money in exchange for policies that benefited foreign interests. Burkina Faso was on the agenda that day, and Ibrahim Traoré, the youngest president in the world, was there to speak. From the moment he entered the room, the atmosphere shifted. He wasn't dressed like the others. No expensive tailored suit, no silk tie. He wore his green military uniform and red beret, the same one he had worn when he took power. It was a silent statement. I am not here to play your game. The tension, the early part of the meeting, was routine. IMF officials presented their reports filled with economic jargon and projections. A French delegate spoke about integrating Burkina Faso into global markets. An American representative stressed security partnerships in exchange for economic aid. Traoré sat quietly, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. He listened to every word, his fingers tapping slowly on the table. Then, an IMF executive leaned forward and said, the moment Traoré rose from his seat, his chair scraped against the polished floor, the sound echoing in the silent hall. He didn't look at the papers in front of him. He didn't thank the panel. He simply looked around the room, at the suits, the polished shoes, the confident smiles of people who believed they controlled the future of his country. Then he spoke. We are free. 3 words, not shouted, not whispered, but spoken with a conviction that seemed to shake the air. For a moment, no one moved. The French delegate's smile froze. The IMF executive blinked as if he hadn't heard. Correctly, Traoré continued. We are not here to beg. We are not here to trade our children's future for your loans. Burkina Faso is free, and we will stay free. The silence in the room was heavy. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked down at their notes, avoiding eye contact. An African delegate from another nation allowed himself the faintest smile. A few in the back nodded slowly, as if they had been waiting years for someone to say it out loud. The IMF chair cleared his throat, trying to steer the discussion back to policy. But it was too late. The atmosphere had changed. The balance of power in that room had shifted. The aftermath inside the room, the rest of the meeting, was short. Questions about Burkina Faso's economic stability were cut off with calm, but firm replies from Traoré. He refused to commit to any restructuring plans that served foreign corporations before serving his own people. A Western journalist later wrote that it was the most uncomfortable IMF session in years. Because of insults, but because of truth. The reaction back home when news of the meeting reached Burkina Faso, it spread like wildfire. The phrase "We are free" appeared on banners, in market stalls, on walls painted in the colors of the national flag. Radio hosts repeated his words over and over. Children in schoolyards chanted them during breaks. For many, it was the first time they had heard a leader speak to the IMF without fear. The global ripple effect in African capitals. Leaders took notice. Some congratulated Traoré publicly, others stayed silent. but quietly wondered if they could take the same stand. In Western media, opinions were divided. Some called him reckless, a populist playing with fire. Others admitted he was saying what millions had been thinking for decades. Why those three words mattered? For years. African nations had been caught in a cycle. Take the loan, follow. The conditions, lose control over resources. Repeat. The IMF claimed it was support, but many saw it as a modern form of colonialism, control. Through debt, Traoré's three words weren't just about Burkina Faso. They were a challenge to that system, a warning that a new generation of African leaders was ready to stand without fear. The man behind the word's eyes, important to understand. This wasn't just a dramatic moment for the cameras. This was who Traoré had always been. A soldier who rose from the ranks not because of wealth or political connections, but because his men trusted him. A leader who believed sovereignty wasn't negotiable. And in that IMF hall, with the world watching, he proved it. When the meeting ended, Traoré didn't shake hands with the IMF executives. He didn't pose for photographs. He walked out the same way he walked in, head high, eyes forward, his red beret, a symbol of defiance, in the hallway. A young African aide from another country ran after him. "President Traoré," he said, "what you said, it gave me hope." Traoré simply smiled and replied, "Hope is not enough. You must act." In a world where leaders often bow to pressure, sometimes it only takes three words to remind a nation who they are. For Burkina Faso, those words were, "We are free."